Also, can you please ensure your mobile phones are switched off or to silent? And councillors, can I remind you, please speak directly into the microphone, make sure your cards therefore push firmly into the console. Members of the public, I'd like to say that as a committee we understand that matters under consideration tonight can be emotive. It is a meeting held in public, it's not a public meeting. Therefore, I'd respectfully ask you to, and those around you, to refrain from any booing, cheering, or any other form of disturbance. Can we now move on to the main items of business? The minutes of the meeting, which took place on the 8th of July, have been laid on the table for the last 30 minutes. Are you content I signed these as a correct record of that meeting? Thank you. Apologies for absent. Emma?
Apologies from Jed Hall, thank you.
Thank you. Declarations of interest, Emma?
None received before the meeting.
Councillor Piper.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Member of Hazelmere Town Council Planning and Highways Committee.
I don't think we need that.
We do like to take.
Okay, we do take a note of that. 1, 2, all 3.
Ditto, please.
Thank you.
Ditto.
Thank you. Noted. Okay, no, here. Sorry, back to the beginning. Interest, yeah. Sorry. Questions by members of the public. Emma, have there been any?
None received, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And moving on to item 5, any relevant updates, government guidance or legislation since the last meeting? Elizabeth.
Thank you, Chairman. There have been some relevant changes since your last meeting to update members on. Firstly, at the beginning of July, the government published its document Fixing the Foundations, Creating a More Prosperous Nation as part of its growth agenda. I'm sure members may have seen that. This includes some future proposed changes to the development control process, including granting automatic planning permission on brownfield land, and also a proposal to transfer infrastructure applications that have an element of housing within them to the nationally significant infrastructure regime. Now, these proposals are going to be subject to further guidance from government, so they are just headlines at the moment. But in addition, and with immediate effect, the government's threshold for measuring planning application performance has changed and been raised to require that no fewer than 50%, that's raised from 40%, of major applications should be determined within the statutory determination period. Sorry, should no fewer outside of the determination period. So this performance target informs the poorly performing and special measures designation. A proposal to bring minor developments into this performance regime is also proposed, and that is, as members may be aware, 1 to 9 dwellings and up to 1,000 square metres of commercial floor space. So the effect on measuring majors is immediate, but the proposal to bring minors into this proposal is forthcoming. A second important change to update you on has followed a High Court judgment received last week. And this was a judicial review by 2 local councils of the government's decision to change policy and guidance on affordable housing and infrastructure from last autumn. This change effectively raised the threshold to more than 10 dwellings before affordable housing or infrastructure contributions could be sought. Now, members have been familiar with that in dealing with applications since that time. The court decided in this instance that the government's actions were not lawful due to flawed procedure, including inadequate consultation. The government guidance in the NPPG has been withdrawn. So in respect of affordable housing, this means that this council can now revert to applying policy H5 of the local plan, which means we can ask for affordable housing within rural settlement areas where the development gain is net gain of 5 dwellings or more, or the site is greater than 0.2 of a hectare. So the previous change from November had meant that we weren't able to ask for those contributions. Just to warn you, the government is intending on applying to the Court of Appeal to challenge this decision, so it may revert back again, but for the time being we are able to apply the local plan policy again. In relation to infrastructure, the MPB changes to the pooling arrangements that took place from April of this year will continue to apply, so that it is not practical to revert back to applying the SPD PIC calculator on 1 to 10 dwellings as we previously did. This is because, as you'll be aware, all contributions since the 6th of April must now be justified on a bespoke and case-specific basis and not exceed 5 obligations going towards any single piece of infrastructure. So we're no longer able to apply the old calculator, which just allowed us to calculate sums and say to a developer, that's what you should be paying. Each contribution has to be justified on a bespoke basis and no more than 5 going towards one piece of infrastructure. So given this, the infrastructure providers are only likely to seek contributions on major developments in order to maximise the contributions that can be achieved. There are no applications on tonight's agenda that require reassessment in the light of the affordable housing policy position. And in relation to PIC, or planning infrastructure contributions, there is one proposal that is potentially affected, which is item A1. But officers consider, bearing in mind what I have advised, that the approach that's taken in the report remains valid. So I trust that's helpful. Happy to take any questions. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Did I see Councillor Edwards?
Thank you, Chairman. Just going back to the government going to the Court of Appeal, can we as a council please express our concern about the government's policy, because it is totally unfair, as far as I'm concerned, to councils like ours. It's a penalty, and it's penalising us for doing our job, basically. And I think really we need to write to the Minister of State explaining our concerns. Is that possible, please?
Elizabeth, or portfolio holder?
I'll take it.
Okay, Erica, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we could send a letter out. We could make inquiries and find out, who's dealing with the cases and see if we could. Did you want to go in as an interested party or just send a letter of support?
Can I come back? Yeah. I think perhaps what would be better is if we could speak to other councils who are affected exactly the same way, and they all take action on this particular issue, because I really think it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on then to item 6 on the agenda, the Quarterly Appeals Report. Louise, would you like to present, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Members will note from the agenda that 5 appeal decisions and 1 cost decision have been received in the last quarter. The first is that the land to the east of Ivy House on the street in Dockenfield, and this was for the erection of 1 dwelling. This was refused and then subsequently dismissed at appeal due to the unacceptable scale and the design of the proposal and the unsustainable location of the new dwelling. The second is at Barker's Garden Machinery, which was at 37 Lower Road in Greyswood, and this was for the erection of 2 dwellings. This was refused due to the loss of the commercial land and the insufficient car parking. This one was allowed at appeal, with the inspector commenting that the site was not likely to be suitable for employment purposes because of the small size of the site, and that any additional parking occurring as a result of the proposal would not significantly harm the character of the locality or the amenities of neighbours. The next one was at Highcombe Edge School on Tilford Road. This one was refused because it was inappropriate greenbelt development, and because of the design and appearance were felt to materially harm the character and appearance of the AONB and the AGLB. The inspector allowed the appeal, considering that the extensions were not disproportionate to the existing building and that they had an acceptable design. The inspector gave great weight to the importance of ensuring sufficient choice of school places. The applicants also applied for costs on this appeal. These were, however, not awarded by by the inspector, as he did not consider that the council had behaved unreasonably. The next appeal was at the Nook on Beacon Hill Road. This one was for the erection of a single-storey detached dwelling. This was refused due to the unacceptable design of the building in relation to its siting and scale and the impact on the character and appearance of the area. It was also refused on the impact on the adjoining occupiers due to a loss of light. The inspector agreed with the council's decision and dismissed the appeal on the same grounds. The final appeal it was at Abbotsmere on Tilford Road. This one was for a single-storey extension. This was refused because the extension was considered to be disproportionate to the original dwelling and therefore comprised inappropriate greenbelt development, and it also had an unacceptable impact on the openness of the greenbelt. The inspector again agreed that the extension was disproportionate and would cause harm to the openness of the greenbelt, and again dismissed this appeal. If members have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chairman. Just going back to item 2, Barker's Garden Machinery, 37 Lower Road, Greyswood. I don't understand how the inspector, or when he visited the site, can say that any additional parking occurring as a result of the proposal would have an insignificant impact. That's impossible. Anybody who knows the site and knows Greyswood would find it impossible to park there during school time. So I don't understand how his reasoning here is crazy. And I know the officers did it under delegated powers, but I have great sympathy here, because at the end of the day, the inspector's got it wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. I think the officers probably agree with you. Just as a matter of interest, item 5, the Nook, that piece of land has now become a garden of the neighbour. He purchased the land, so that's good. So if there are no further questions, thank you, Louise. Can I confirm the committee are happy to note the report? Thank you very much. Quarterly enforcement report. Victoria would like to present, please.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could take you to page 13, councillors, and I can give a swift update to the site-specific cases for your area. There are 2. We have North Side in West End Lane, Frensham, where a Section 215 notice was issued to tidy the land. This is considered, it has now been complied with, and we are recommending closure of the case and for it to be removed from the list. And the second is the land at Winterton Arms, Petworth Road, Chiddingfold, where an enforcement notice has been served. Currently we have a prosecution bundle with legal services which is currently being assessed. If I could take you over to the statistics, just to headline that the cases on hand currently for the quarter were 238, the target being 250, so that's below, and slightly below the previous quarter, a reduction on the previous quarter. And for the performance against the local performance indicator, which is 70% of cases actioned within 12 weeks, it is 95%. Again, that is slightly up on the previous quarter. Thank you very much, Chairman. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Councillor King.
Thank you, Chairman. It's not a question, it's actually to congratulate officers on the amount of work they've managed to get through in this quarter. I think it's a really good achievement. Keep it up.
Thank you all very much. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Councillor King. I second your comment. I was waiting for the questions to go first. No, I think it's a good job. I know we're trying to reduce the target so that we get more and more of these cleared, and you've obviously set off in a good direction. So well done, and well done in getting the performance of 12 weeks up as well. Keep it up, please, Victoria.
Yes. Delightful piece of news, so that is noted. Can I confirm that the committee are happy to note the report? Thank you. Item 8, applications for planning permission. In the event of site inspections being necessary as a result of consideration of the applications at this meeting, they'll be held on Tuesday, the 1st of September, at a time to be agreed. So moving on to the planning applications. Item number 1, A1, WA 2015 as 1020, first application, land between Shortfield House and Dingles Cottage, Hampshire Lane, Frensham, GU 103AU. Louise, would you like to...
Chairman, in view of the a large number of objections to this and the fact that the committee have not had a chance to actually inspect the site themselves, I'd like to propose that in fact this is carried over for a site meeting for the whole committee to go and see this particular site.
I think we need to go through the procedure first for Louise to present the case, for the public speakers to make their comment, and then I'll open it up to you, Councillor Adams, if you're happy with that. So, Louise, can you take us through the report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. The site is located here on the western side of Hamlash Lane. It originally formed part of the residential curtilage of Shortfield House, but has since been divided from this site. The site is located just outside the village settlement of Shortfield. The boundary of the settlement runs along the opposite side of Hamlash Lane. The site is surrounded by residential properties, which are predominantly detached and semi-detached properties. As you can see from the aerial photograph, the site is covered by dense trees and landscaping. The closest residential properties are Tignall's Cottage, which is located to the north, and Shortfield House, which is located here to the south. Their curtilage runs all the way along the south of the site, and Shortfield Cottage, which is located here to the rear of the site. These top two photos are taken of the adjoining property at Tignall's Cottage. This property has been extended to the side. There are windows in the side of this property, and but these rooms are also served by windows to the front and the rear of the property. This photo is taken from Hamlash Lane, looking towards the front of the site. This photo is taken from within the curtilage of Shortfield House, looking towards the site, and these two photos are of the opposite side of Hamlash Lane, showing the residential properties in the vicinity. 2 detached dwellings are proposed as part of this application. Each of the properties would have an access off Hamlash Lane with 3 off-street car parking spaces. Large areas of amenity space would be provided to the rear of each property. The adjoining property at Tignall's Cottage has been extended to the side. The side extension and the garage are not shown on the plan, which has been taken from the Ordnance Survey map. This proposed building is located 4.5 metres from the side wall of Tignall's Cottage. Plot 1 would comprise a 4-bedroom dwelling, and Plot 2 would comprise a 4-bedroom detached property as well. This plan shows the Hamlash Lane street scene with the 2 proposed detached properties in the centre, the adjoining property at Tignall's Cottage, and the access to Shortfield House. The matters of principal and technical opinion are the principle of development, housing land supply, trees, highways including the impact on traffic and parking, biodiversity, and the effect on the SPA and SAC. The matters of judgment are the sustainability of the location, the impact of the AGLV and the countryside, the impact on visual amenity, and the impact on residential amenity and the standard of accommodation provided and amenity space. Can I also draw members' attention to the update sheet, which outlines additional representations which were received following the publication of the agenda. There were representations from a neighbour and from the West Surrey Badger Group regarding protected species, and an additional statement was submitted from the applicant's ecologist in relation to badgers on the site. Since the publication of the update sheet, Surrey Wildlife Trust have responded in relation to the representations and the additional ecology information on badgers. They consider the Arbtech's letter to be sufficient in relation to the impact on badgers on the site, and have advised that the recommendations in the letter of report, including the biodiversity enhancements, should be secured by condition. A condition to this effect was recommended in the update report. They have also recommended that as this site appears to be very densely vegetated, which can make locating set entrances difficult, that a survey of the site is undertaken when vegetation has died back in the winter, in order that a thorough search can be made for active badger sets which could be impacted by the works. An additional condition is therefore recommended that prior to the commencement of works and within the winter months, a further badger survey is carried out that shall be submitted to and approved by the local planning authority. If any badger sets are found, mitigation proposals shall be submitted to and also approved by the local planning authority, and these shall be carried out as approved. I'm happy to answer any questions that members have.
Okay, thank you very much, Louise. This item is one for public speaking. I understand the procedure has been explained. So can I please ask the objector, Leslie Wicks, to speak?
I'm speaking today on behalf of 65 neighbours. We are all deeply concerned about the loss of amenity this sizeable development would cause to neighbours and to the village as a whole. We are disappointed that our material concerns have been inadequately addressed by the planning officer. We recognise Waverley's housing needs, and if development is inevitable, we support a more sensitive development of a smaller semi-detached property in keeping with the local area. I would like to draw your attention to the material considerations. The appearance and character of the application are not in keeping with the Frensham design statement, and the proposed buildings would be at odds in this rural lane. Previous extension applications have been carefully controlled with conditions of use on sympathetic materials such as Bargate stone. Similar conditions should be applied to any new building in order to maintain the existing character of the street. Traffic generation, safety and parking in Hamlash Lane is already a risk for all pedestrians, including children, from Morehouse School who use the lane every day. Hamlash Lane is a narrow lane with no footways. A site visit would clearly illustrate our concerns under this heading. With regards to overshadowing and the loss of privacy, it is easy to form the wrong impression from the submitted plans, as Jubilee Cottage is twice the width of what is shown, and its entire frontage will be immediately opposite the first property and its driveway. Tignall's Cottage has a side extension that will be closer than is apparent on the plans. Linked to the overshadowing is an inevitable loss of privacy to these cottages, which will suffer vehicle headlights from two separate driveways. Each of these cottages have had an open outlook for more than a century. The overbearing nature of this proposal does not reflect the fact that the surrounding properties have plots in excess of 1/3 of an acre. By comparison, this development is overcrowded. These would be the first properties to be built on the west side of Hamlash Lane in over 100 years and would be significantly larger than those to the north and east. A smaller semi-detached property in similar style to its neighbours would be more in keeping and appropriate to what our village needs. Loss of ecological habitats has not been properly researched. The applicant's survey failed to identify 2 badger sets and possible slowworm activity. This is an example of why more consideration is needed. In conclusion, we submit this application represents overdevelopment and is out of keeping with properties in the lane. We want to continue to enhance and add to the vitality of our village. The village does not need more executive homes, but it does need properties for younger residents to move into and older residents to downsize to, freeing up larger homes to younger families. Please review the 65 letters of objection, which is a reflection of the strength and feelings by the residents. Our concerns have not been addressed in the revised plan for 2 large detached properties, which are out of keeping with the street scene. A site visit would demonstrate our concerns more clearly than the time available here allows. You have to get this decision right, as it will impact on Frensham for generations to come. We urge you to reject this application, as we have no means of proposing more acceptable solutions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wicks. Now can I invite the Frensham Parish Council to speak, and I think that's Councillor Dick Beales.
Thank you, Chairman. As you've just heard, there's been an unprecedented level of opposition to this application within our community. I'm going to focus on three issues of particular concern to the Parish Council: the rural settlement boundary, the lack of consultation, and the scale of the proposed development. It is surely beyond dispute that the application site lies outside the settlement boundary. If permission is granted, a precedent will be set for similar disregard for boundaries around the edges of the other defined settlement areas within our parish. It also raises questions as to what these boundaries are actually for, if they are open to such subjective interpretation, and to what extent, in terms of distance from a designated boundary, is such discretion justifiable. On the issue of lack of consultation with the local community, the planning statement acknowledges paragraph 66 of the NPPF, which categorically expects applicants to evolve their designs, taking account of the views of the local community. But this application provides no evidence that any such consultation has taken place. This is hardly surprising because there was none. On the scale of the proposed development, we have on the one hand the planning officer's own views as to what constitutes an appropriate scale and style of development for our village, and on the other the views of the neighbours directly affected and of the community more widely, all of whom have to live with the consequences of your decision over the longer term. Surely their views, in the spirit of the much trumpeted localism agenda, should carry substantial weight. We're particularly disappointed that the applicant has failed to acknowledge the Frenchman Village Design Statement or to pay attention to the guidelines that it contains relating to house style and scale. The VDS seeks to encourage a good mix of house sizes in the interests of a balanced community, not least to accommodate an increasing number of younger families and retired folk wishing to downsize. The two large, detached, executive-style homes of uninspiring design, which are out of character with the street scene and are shoehorned onto the site, constitute overdevelopment in our view. Moreover, they do not meet any real local need. Notwithstanding the comments in the Planning Officer's report on Policy C2 about the settlement boundary, the Parish Council stands firm in its objection to this application on the principle that the site is outside the defined settlement area. If, however, you agree with the Planning Officer that this important principle can safely be disregarded, we're aware that neighbours might have found the application less objectionable had a pair of sensitively designed and proportionately scaled semi-detached cottages been proposed. Frensham Parish Council is therefore asking you to reflect hard on the issues I have raised, along with the other representations made by people who also care deeply about our village, and to refuse the application as currently presented. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Beales. Beautifully timed, if I might say. Members, I open it to you. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chairman. I certainly agree that it's a big failure for the developers not to have consulted on this, and I think that in view of, as I said, all of the objections and what we've seen of the street scene today, that a site visit would be appropriate in this case.
Thank you for that. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Inchwell.
I agree with everything Councillor Adams has just said. I think it is essential that we go and have a look.
Thank you. Members, anyone else want to speak on that matter? Councillor Round?
I'd just like to agree with that as well.
Fine. Can I move then straight to the vote? Those in favour of the site visit, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Those against? Abstentions?
2.
Thank you very much. Site visit, as previously noted, on the 1st of September. Moving on then to item A2, WA 2015-1019, land at Tilford Garage and Appleton, Tilford Street, Tilford. Louise, would you like to introduce this one, please?
Thank you,
Maybe
Chairman.
we'd just let the people leave. All yours.
Thank you. This site is located on the northwestern side of Tilford Street and comprises an area of 0.38 hectares. The site is currently occupied by some commercial buildings here in the centre of the site, which are occupied by car repairs and vehicle sales, with associated car parking at the front of the site and in the centre of the site here. At the rear of the site is a residential dwelling, and at the very front of the site here in the southwest corner is a village shop. As you can see from the aerial photograph, the site is heavily screened with trees from the west. To the west is open space adjacent to the River Way, and the surrounding area is occupied by residential dwellings, mostly detached in nature, and some flats which are immediately to the southwest of the site here. The site is located outside the settlement of Tilford, which is located to the northeast, but is considered to be previously developed land. These two photos at the top of the slide show the front of the site. This is the vehicle sales and car repairs buildings, and this shows the village shop with the adjacent flats. This photograph is taken from the southwest of the site, looking across the open fields. In the distance you can see the commercial buildings and the flats here to the front of the site. This photo is taken from inside the site, looking towards the flats, which are just outside the site to the southwest. This photograph is taken of the residential building which is located at the rear of the site, and this photograph is taken looking opposite the site. The residential property which exists to the rear of the site and the commercial buildings which are located here in the middle of the site would be demolished. The application has been accompanied by marketing information demonstrating that the applicants have been unable to let the premises for an alternative commercial use. The existing village shop would be extended here at the front of the site, and 5 properties would be positioned fronting Tilford Road. Each of these properties would have amenity space to the rear. The existing vehicular access would be used to provide access to a car parking area, which would be to the rear of the shop and these dwellings. This will have 19 car parking spaces in it, which would serve the proposed dwellings, the shop, and would also provide some car parking to the existing flats, which don't currently benefit from an off-street car parking arrangement. 3 detached dwellings would be provided to the rear of the site. They would also be accessed via the existing access roads. These would be served by a garage and off-street car parking and amenity space to the rear. The village shop would be extended by 22 square metres and would have a pitched roof and would be single storey. Plot 1 would be located to the far rear of the site. This would be a large 5-bedroom detached property which would have an attached double garage. Plot 2 would be located just to the south of Plot 1, and this would be a 4-bedroom detached property with a detached double garage. Plot 3 would be located to the south of Plot 2 and would be a 3-bedroom detached property. Plots 4 to 8 would be 5 properties fronting Tilford Road. These would be arranged as a pair of semi-detached properties and 3 terraced properties. 4 of these would be 2-bedroom houses and 1 would be a 3-bedroom house. These plans show the street scene along Tilford Road to the front of the site. Here are the existing flats which are just located to the southwest, the village shop and the proposed properties fronting Tilford Road. And this second street scene is taken from the access road and shows the 3 dwellings which would be positioned towards the rear of the site and the side of the row of terraces. And this dotted line, you can just about see it on the slide, that shows the outline of the existing buildings. This image is a CGI showing what the development could look like from Tilford Road. The matters of principal and technical opinion are the principle of the development, flooding and drainage, contaminated land, biodiversity, the effect on the SPA and SAC, housing land supply, and highways, including the impact on traffic and parking. The matters of judgment are the housing mix and density, the standard of accommodation and amenity space, the impact on the village shop, the impact of the loss of the commercial uses, the location of the development, the impact on the green belt, the impact on the AONB, AGLV, landscape and trees, the impact on visual amenity and Tilford Conservation Area, and the impact on residential amenity. I would also like to draw members' attention to the update sheet. As you can see from the update, Historic England have raised no objection to the proposal. Natural England haven't responded within the relevant time period. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Louise. Again, public speaking, so as there are no objectors who wish express their wish to speak, can I first ask the supporter, Mr. Paul Fox? 3 minutes, sir, from the time you start talking.
Good evening, everyone. I speak as an interested party for a number of reasons. I live within approximately 100 metres of the garage site on the opposite side of the road. I have of late become an informal custodian of the Tilford Conservation Area, and I live in what is allegedly the oldest house in the village. I therefore have a fairly keen interest in maintaining the appearance and visual amenity of the village. I'm also a parish councillor, albeit I hasten to add I'm here in a private capacity this evening. The existing garage site, I would suggest, is a blight on the village. It's a scruffy used car site to the frontage, and the repair and paint workshops, which you've seen on the diagrams, to the rear. The villagers have to put up with regular car transporter visits, which are, it's a large vehicle, it carries 11 or 12 vehicles. It parks on the pavement, typically for an hour or more, whilst it's loaded and unloaded, with the diesel engine running and associated disturbance. The truck also, I hasten to add, drives over the 7.5 tonne limit bridge on a regular occasion, and it's well over that weight. So the existing facility is very much a problem for the neighbouring properties. So far as the plans for the cottages and houses are concerned, they appear to be very well matched to the general look of the surroundings, in particular in this part of the village. And I would also add that the previous redevelopment by the applicant of the old shop, which is now the flats to the side of the existing shop, has in fact greatly enhanced the visual amenity of the village, and certainly the view from the green and coming over the bridge. One of the key advantages, I think, of this development from a visual amenity perspective is the removal of the rather ugly gable ends of the warehouse, of the workshops, which will, of course, disappear with the new development and screening. So as far as I'm concerned personally, providing the new dwellings are built in period style, which they appear to be, and with either reclaimed materials or appropriate matching modern materials, I believe this development will greatly enhance the visual amenity of the village, and is well in keeping with what we try to achieve with the conservation area. So in summary, I'm very supportive of the application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fox. Members, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chairman. Very interesting comments there from a parish councillor. I notice in condition 13 that there is a construction transport management plan, which I welcome, because during school time, this is a very, very busy road, with Waverley Abbey, 200 or 300 yards away, and very, very narrow lane and entrance to the old bridge over the way. I'd just like to emphasise that we do need a proper transport management plan here, and when there's connection to the sewage or whatever, or to utilities, they must minimise the disruption to traffic. It is absolutely vital. Other than this, I think this development is a positive move, and I welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Chairman. Unlike the last application, this one actually went through 2 consultations in the village. All of the materials that are proposed to be used for the different buildings have been on display, both in the Institute and in the shop, as has been the design for some time. At a parish meeting, all but 2 of about 24 people, all but 2 supported this application, and the parish council, as you'll note in the report, also support this application. I think it's a very good development. I think it will enhance the village, and I welcome it.
Councillor Adams, thank you very much. Councillor Inchbold.
Just very briefly, Chairman, and I think I've said this about previous other applications in the past, anything is better than what's there now. And what we see on the screen now seems to me to be attractive and carefully thought through, and I would certainly support it.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor King.
Thank you very much, Chairman. When you look at the CGI, you think they look like they've always been there. I think it's a really good piece of design that would be very much in keeping. I mean, I do personally have serious concerns about the size of housing mix. However, it received support from the local community. I'm a bit unhappy that we've got a 5-bedroom and a 4-bedroom when the local need seems to be for slightly smaller. But on balance, it's a matter of balance, and on balance, I'm happy to support it.
Thank you very much indeed. Just adding to what Councillor Adams said, the way the developer has gone about public consultation with the local population is admirable. I wish everyone would follow that example. Let's go straight to the vote then, if we may, members. There are 2 recommendations. Recommendation A, that subject to no objection from Natural England and subject to the applicant entering into a legal agreement to secure environmental improvements, and conditions 1 to 25 on pages 91 to 101 and informatives 1 to 12 on pages 101 to 103 of the agenda, permission be granted. Can I have a show of hands? Those in favour?
That's unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. Recommendation B, that in the event that the requirements in recommendation A are not met, permission be refused. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Yep, unanimous.
Unanimous again. Thank you very much indeed. There's no need to exclude press and public, so that completes our meeting. Thank you all very much indeed.